You check their phone when they're in the shower.
You analyze every text message for hidden meanings.
You create elaborate scenarios in your head where they're cheating with their coworker, their ex, or literally anyone who breathes in their direction. Sound familiar? Welcome to the exhausting world of trust issues, where your brain has appointed itself as a full-time detective in your own relationship. But here's the plot twist that might blow your mind. Those trust issues you think are protecting you from heartbreak? They're actually roadmaps to your deepest wounds, GPS coordinates to your childhood traumas, and surprisingly accurate predictors of whether your relationship will thrive or crash and burn. What you think is paranoia might actually be your psyche's way of showing you exactly what needs healing. The trust issue epidemic isn't just about suspicious partners or cheating exes. It's about something much deeper, much more primal, and way more fixable than you think. Your inability to trust isn't a character flaw. It's a survival mechanism that's outlived its usefulness, like a smoke detector that goes off every time you make toast. The question isn't whether you have trust issues. The question is what story they're trying to tell you about your journey toward real, lasting love. Picture your nervous system as a highly sophisticated security system installed when you were just a kid. Every betrayal, every broken promise, every time someone said they loved you and then disappeared, your brain took notes. Detailed notes. Now that security system runs in the background of every relationship, scanning for threats that might not even exist. But here's what researchers have discovered that changes everything. Trust issues aren't random glitches in your programming. They're specific patterns that reveal exactly which childhood wounds are still running the show in your adult relationships. When you find yourself stalking your partner's social media at 2 a.m., you're not just being crazy. You're reenacting a very specific childhood experience where someone important to you was emotionally unavailable or unpredictable. Studies suggest that children who experienced inconsistent caregiving develop what psychologists call an anxious attachment style. Their little brains learn that love is something you have to chase, monitor, and constantly verify. Fast forward to adulthood, and that same system kicks into overdrive every time your partner takes longer than usual to text back. Your trust issues aren't about your partner. They're about a 5-year-old inside you who never learned that love can be steady and reliable. But here's where it gets even more specific. If your parent was depressed or overwhelmed, you probably learned that love means being hypervigilant about other people's moods and trying to fix them when they're off. Now you read your partner's facial expressions like a detective, convinced that any slight change in their energy means you've done something wrong. If your caregiver was emotionally explosive, you likely developed an intense fear of conflict that makes you either completely avoid difficult conversations or have them in the worst possible way. If you were parentified as a child, you probably struggle with asking for support in relationships because your brain still believes that your job is to give, not receive. Each trust issue has its own origin story, and once you understand yours, everything about your relationship pattern starts making sense. The jealousy that makes you interrogate your partner about every conversation they had at work isn't actually about them potentially cheating. It's about your core belief that you're not enough to keep someone's attention. This belief usually gets programmed during those crucial early years when you needed validation and security, but got chaos and uncertainty instead. When researchers examined couples in therapy, they found that the partner with severe trust issues almost always had a history of emotional neglect or abandonment, not necessarily in romantic relationships, but way back in their formative years. That jealous voice in your head isn't protecting you from infidelity, it's protecting you from feeling that original abandonment wound all over again. Here's where it gets really interesting, and kind of beautiful in a twisted way. Your trust issues are like a personalized diagnostic tool created by your own experiences. The specific things that trigger your paranoia reveal exactly what kind of healing you need. Do you panic when your partner doesn't respond to texts immediately? That's your abandonment wound talking. Do you assume they're lying even when they're telling obvious truths? That's your betrayal trauma creating false alarms. Do you sabotage good relationships before they can hurt you? That's your protection system working overtime to prevent future pain. Each trust issue is like a GPS pin dropped on your emotional map, showing you exactly where the healing work needs to happen. But here's the kicker that most people don't realize. Trust issues don't just damage your current relationship. They actively prevent you from developing the emotional skills you need for lasting love. When you're constantly in detective mode, you can't be in connection mode. When you're scanning for threats, you can't be present for intimacy. When you're protecting yourself from imaginary betrayals, you can't be vulnerable enough to build real trust. It's like trying to plant a garden while simultaneously building a fortress. The very thing you think is protecting your heart is actually preventing it from growing. And here's the really twisted part. Your brain creates elaborate tests for your partner that they don't even know they're taking. You might withdraw affection to see if they'll chase you, or pick fights to see if they'll stick around when things get difficult. These unconscious tests feel like you're protecting yourself by gathering information about their character. But what you're actually doing is creating artificial stress in the relationship and then using their reaction to that stress as evidence of their untrustworthiness. It's like deliberately burning dinner and then concluding that you're a terrible cook. Your protection system doesn't just guard against betrayal. It manufactures the very betrayal it's trying to prevent. The cruel irony is that trust issues often attract exactly the wrong kind of people while repelling the right ones. When you're operating from a wounded place, you unconsciously seek out partners who confirm your worst fears about love. The emotionally unavailable person feels familiar because your nervous system recognizes the pattern from childhood. The person who actually shows up consistently feels boring or fake because steady love doesn't match your internal template for what relationships are supposed to feel like. Meanwhile, healthy potential partners often get scared off by the intensity of your need for constant reassurance. You end up in a dating pattern that confirms your trust issues while missing out on people who could actually help heal them. It's like being hungry but only eating food that makes you feel worse, then wondering why you never feel nourished. Think about it this way. Your wounded inner child is essentially running your dating profile, swiping right on people who feel like home even when home was chaotic. That person who takes 3 days to text back. Your trauma brain says, finally someone who gets me. The person who shows genuine interest and wants to spend time with you. Your nervous system screams this is a trap. Healthy people don't want damaged goods. Studies on attachment patterns show that people often mistake anxiety for chemistry and stability for boredom. That electric feeling you get with the wrong person isn't passion. It's your nervous system recognizing familiar danger and flooding your body with stress hormones that feel remarkably similar to excitement. Meanwhile, the calm feeling you get with emotionally available people gets misinterpreted as lack of spark when it's actually what safety feels like to a nervous system that's never experienced it. So how do you break this cycle without becoming a naive doormat who trusts everyone blindly? The answer lies in understanding the difference between discernment and paranoia, between healthy boundaries and trauma responses. Real trust isn't about believing everything someone tells you or ignoring red flags. Real trust is about having enough self-worth to believe you can handle whatever reality brings, including betrayal if it happens. When you trust yourself to navigate difficult situations, you don't need to control your partner's every move. When you know your own value, you don't need constant validation to feel secure. Learning to distinguish between your intuition and your trauma takes practice, but there are some reliable ways to tell the difference. Your intuition speaks in calm, clear statements like something feels off about this situation. Your trauma speaks in dramatic absolutes like they're definitely cheating or everyone always leaves me. Intuition gives you information to consider. Trauma gives you commands to react. When you're operating from intuition, you can have rational conversations about your concerns. When you're operating from trauma, everything feels urgent and catastrophic. Learning to pause and ask yourself, is this my wisdom talking, or is this my wound talking, becomes one of the most powerful tools in your healing toolkit. The healing journey from trust issues to healthy relationships isn't about learning to trust other people more. It's about learning to trust yourself more. It's about developing what psychologists call earned security, where you consciously create the safety and consistency for yourself that you didn't get as a child. This means building a relationship with yourself that's so solid that other people's behavior can't destabilize your sense of worth. It means learning to self-soothe when your anxiety spikes instead of immediately demanding reassurance from your partner. It means recognizing when your trauma is being triggered versus when your intuition is picking up on actual red flags. The goal isn't to become someone who never feels jealous or worried. The goal is to become someone who can feel those emotions without letting them hijack your behavior or your relationship. But let's get real about what this healing actually looks like in practice. It's not some mystical transformation where you suddenly become zen about everything. It's more like learning to be the parent to yourself that you needed when you were little. When that familiar panic rises because your partner didn't kiss you goodbye the same way they usually do, instead of spiraling into they must be cheating mode, you pause and ask yourself what's really happening. You notice the physical sensations of anxiety without immediately acting on them. You remind yourself of the actual evidence versus the fear-based stories your brain is creating. You practice what therapists call grounding techniques, maybe taking deep breaths or naming 5 things you can see around you. This isn't about suppressing your feelings or pretending everything is fine. It's about creating space between feeling triggered and reacting from that triggered place. Here's what most people get wrong about healing trust issues. They think they need to find the perfect partner who will never trigger their insecurities. But that's not how healing works. Healing happens when you learn to stay present and connected even when your trust issues get activated. It's like developing emotional muscle memory for security instead of panic. Researchers studying couples therapy outcomes found that relationships actually get stronger when partners learn to navigate trust challenges together rather than avoiding them. Your trust issues aren't something to be ashamed of or hide from potential partners. They're information about what you need to feel safe in love, and the right person will be willing to help you heal rather than making your wounds worse. The most profound shift happens when you realize that your trust issues were never really about trust at all. They were about safety, worthiness, and whether love is something you can count on or something that gets taken away without warning. When you start doing the deeper work of creating internal safety and self-worth, something magical happens. You stop attracting partners who confirm your worst fears and start attracting people who see your sensitivity as a gift rather than a burden. You stop needing constant proof of love and start being able to give and receive it freely. You stop living in fear of betrayal and start living in possibility of connection. Your relationship journey transforms from a series of emotional landmines into a path toward deeper intimacy and trust. And here's something beautiful that happens as you heal. Your capacity for genuine intimacy actually increases. When you're not constantly scanning for threats, you can notice the small moments of love and connection that were always there but got drowned out by your anxiety. You start appreciating when your partner brings you coffee in the morning instead of analyzing why they didn't bring it yesterday. You begin celebrating their friendships instead of feeling threatened by them. You learn to have difficult conversations about your needs without accusations or dramatics. Research on secure attachment shows that people who've done this healing work actually become better partners themselves. They're more emotionally regulated, more empathetic, and more capable of the vulnerability that real intimacy requires. Your journey through trust issues doesn't make you damaged goods. It makes you someone who understands both pain and healing, which creates a depth of compassion that enhances every relationship in your life. Remember that this content is for informational purposes only and doesn't replace professional therapeutic guidance. If your trust issues are severely impacting your mental health or relationships, working with a qualified therapist can provide personalized strategies for healing. Trust issues aren't character defects or signs that you're broken beyond repair. They're breadcrumbs leading you back to the parts of yourself that need love and healing. Every suspicious thought, every moment of jealousy, every time you catch yourself looking for proof of betrayal is actually your psyche asking for help, healing old wounds so you can finally experience the love you've always deserved. So here's my question for you. What do you think your trust issues are really trying to tell you about what you need to feel safe and love? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I guarantee other people are struggling with the same patterns and could use your perspective. And if this video helped you see your relationship challenges in a new light, smash that like button and subscribe for more insights that'll help you navigate the beautiful mess of modern love. Share this with someone who might need to hear that their trust issues aren't a life sentence but a roadmap to healing. What aspect of trust and relationships should we dive into next?